First things first, knowns versus unknowns. When you're talking about knowns, I'm, referring to, for example, our receiving core. I think the receiving core is going to be one of the biggest known commodities of this upcoming season. You have returners in Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams. You also have a guy in transfer, Isaiah Horton, which I think are massive. So your starting three are absolutely known commodities that are very good. Isaiah Horton, obviously coming into a new role on a new team, but I do think that he's going to fit in very nicely. And then you have a lot of really, really good talent behind them. But I do think in general, the fact that our receiving core is going to be good is a very well-known commodity. I would also say the same thing about our offensive line. It's a little bit of unknown versus unknown on that line. Looking at Clint Lamb's predictions for who he has the starters, for the starters you're going to know, right, because they played a huge amount of games last season, and Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford, Jaden Roberts, and Wilkin Formby. Obviously, Wilkin Formby fully sliding into that starting role this upcoming season. And then finally, you have Cam Dewberry, the transfer from Texas A&M. He has him beating out Geno Vandermark for the left guard position. So I would consider that another fully known commodity for the most part. That's a side of the ball that I think is going to do very, very well. Do very, very well this upcoming season. Because, again, these guys have played a lot of snaps with each other. And for the most part, you know what you're getting out of your offensive line. So I do think that your offensive line is another piece where I think you're going to have a lot of success. The last piece of that is, again, your running backs, right? I think your running backs on that on the offense are another fairly known commodity, right? I do think that you have some guys poised for breakout seasons, but by and large, you have a guy in Jam Miller that's stepping into more of a role. Justice Haynes obviously no longer on the team, so you have a guy in Jam Miller that you're going to be your for sure number one, and then Richard Young and Daniel Hill are your kind of 2-3 punch. That's the ones that as if you watched my episode that I did with Clint Lamb, Clint's of the mindset that Daniel Hill potentially is going to, start getting enough snaps that he's going to be seen as like a surefire can't miss guy. Maybe he doesn't take snaps with the ones, but every time he gets in, it seems like, hey, he's the best running back on the field. But again, that running back room in general, I think is a fairly known commodity because of Jam Miller and because of what you're getting out of Jam Miller. I think that the running back room is going to have a floor that is something that's going to be passable, for the entire season. Obviously, the unknown when you go to the offense is the quarterback position. And it has to be the quarterback position. And the thing is, this is why I didn't want to say good versus bad, because I do not believe, and we'll get into my predictions later, but I do not believe that Ty Simpson is going to be bad at the starting quarterback for the University of Alabama. I think that Ty Simpson is going to be a good starting quarterback to very good, right? Get kind of putting the cart before the horse, but I currently look at Ty Simpson potentially as a top 5 to top 3 quarterback in the SEC if he plays to his potential, right? I think that he is up in that realm of going to do very positive things for the offense and is going to run the offense successfully. I would look at him much more of a Mac Jones where he sat and kind of waited his turn and is now ready to flourish. I think that a lot also has to be said of the fact that Ty Simpson's, dad being a college football coach and, him having that coaching around him, but also sitting and staying. I think that it's a situation where Ty Simpson actually put in the work and didn't just kind of sulk because he didn't get the starting job. I think he was fully aware of what all was going on, and Ty Simpson, prepared to be ready for what it takes to be the starting quarterback at the University of Alabama. So personally, I'm of the mindset that even though he is an unknown commodity, obviously none of the quarterbacks in the quarterback room are a known commodity. But even though he is that unknown commodity, I do think that he's going to be a very good quarterback. And again, I do think that Ty Simpson is somebody that's going to be able to lead Alabama to a lot of success this upcoming season. I think that he is obviously the key when you look at Ryan Grubb coming in as the new offensive coordinator. When you look at what Kalen DeBoer has been able to do outside of Jalen Milroe, Kalen DeBoer has like a 4,000-yard passer just about every season. I think that Ty Simpson is going to be able to slot in and be able to get the ball into those receivers' hands that we talked about a little earlier. And I think that they're going to be able to have a lot of success. I do think that Ty Simpson, again, definitely unknown going into the season, but I do think that he is a guy that's going to be able to wow people and kind of show people, he sat, but it wasn't because he was a bad quarterback. He just had to sit and wait his turn. Like I said, I truly do think this is a Mac Jones situation and that Ty Simpson comes in and plays absolutely phenomenally. We switch over to the defensive side of the ball. The known commodity is absolutely the defensive backs. The defensive backs are in a position where, you have a lot of experience in that back end. The youngest guy in the back end played an entire season last season in Xavier Brown. You also just have the guys who you have coming in. They are highly, highly talented guys that I think are going to have a lot of success, but you're not throwing them into a position where they're going to have to play every single snap, right? I think a guy like Dijon Lee long term is going to be a really, really good fit for the University of Alabama, but we're not putting him in a position where he has to be cornerback one starting out right at the beginning, right? You already have Damani Jackson, you already have Xavier Lee, so Dijon Lee isn't going to have to be that main guy to start, right? Long term, I think he's going to be able to be that guy, but because of who all you have and the known commodity that you have back there, you have Keon Sabb back, you have Bray Hubbard back, you have all these different guys that are going to be able to play in that back end. I think that is the biggest known commodity for the University of Alabama this upcoming season. The unknown commodity when we're looking at the defense, in my opinion, is what the linebacking core looks like. You have a ton of experience, right? An absolute ton of experience. However, you have a new guy in Nakai Hill-Green that's coming over from Colorado that is the transfer, so you are curious how he's going to slide in. Personally, I think that he's going to slide in very, very well. I think the linebacking core is going to be a strength of this year's team, but I still have to be curious on what we're going to use him for and how exactly he's going to fit into our system. I do think that, again, he is going to fit in perfectly well. If you are curious about my specific thoughts on the linebacking core, I did a whole video, where I had a segment talking about them. Spoiler alert, I think that the linebackers are going to be really, really good, but Nakai Hill-Green is still an unknown for the University of Alabama this upcoming season. But additionally, you have Deontay Lawson coming off of the injury, and you never are sure when somebody comes off of injury how good they're going to be able to be, when they really get back. And so that's the other unknown. Again, when you have a guy that is coming off of injury mixed in with a guy that's going to be a transfer, again, do I think that they're going to be very successful? Yes. This is one of our oldest groups on the entire team. You have two graduates and one redshirt senior, right? This is an absolutely loaded, super old group. So I do think that this group is going to be very successful. But again, I think that they're a bit of an unknown commodity until we see a couple of games because of Nakai Hill-Green never being in our system before, and then Deontay Lawson coming off of the injury. The other thing that I'm looking at is I'm looking for the guy on the unknown side is who is going to be that elite pass rusher this upcoming season. Alabama did not have it a ton last season, and it's something that I think really hurt us. There was a lot of discussion around how LT Overton wasn't able to fully finish his sacks. He had a lot of quarterback hurries and got to the quarterback a ton, but wasn't able to finish his sacks. I believe, your leading sack guy last season was Jahad Campbell coming from the linebacking core. But again, I just am very curious what Alabama was able to do with with the pass rush, right? Who the pass rush is going to be and who steps up in that pass rush, who is able to, be the guy and be able to really be a force on the inside, be a force on the line, on that defensive line, I think is where the question mark when you're talking about the defense is. I think that the back end is going to be very stable, and I think that you're going to be able to, the defensive backs are going to give Alabama some time to get to that quarterback. But again, that is still the question that I have for this for this defense is where's the pass rush going to come from? Again, I have some answers. I have some ideas as to where I think that might come from, but I still think that that's the biggest unknown commodity when we're looking at Alabama's defense this upcoming season is where's the pass rush going to come from? I think that they're going to cause a lot of turnovers, intercepting the football, going for the fumble. I think that in general, Alabama's defense is going to do a good job turning over the opponent. But being able to pressure the quarterback and get the ball out of that quarterback's hands as quickly as possible, I think is going to be a big key because if you can do that, that's obviously going to lead to those interceptions that we talked about and going to give those safeties and those corners the ability to kind of put their eyes on the ball and make a break on it if you have, you're rushing the quarterback to get it out earlier than he's accustomed to or ready to. So that's my big question when I'm looking at the defense is where's the pass rush going to come from? I think that, like I said, I think that there's a lot of possible answers to this, and I'm open to any options that anybody has to say. But again, I think that that is the biggest question when we're looking at the defense's upcoming season.